The Environmentalist's Environment by Edward Minton. Environmentalists have an exceedingly large backyard and myriad children in it for which to care. Greens obviously concern themselves with the world's plant life, but the diversity and health of Earth's fauna are also part of their care. The pollution of soil, sea and atmosphere is also a critical area of interest, as all life forms are bathed in these. Yet, while this watching brief is huge in its coverage, it has one curious blind spot. It is curious because of all the means of reducing man's unnecessary economic activity and allowing best practices to displace damaging ones. This has perhaps the greatest potential of all for instituting a policy of healing the earth. The purpose of this essay is to make the case for attention being given to this special opportunity for a healthier environment. I refer, of course, to that subject which has been a Greens no-go area for decades, namely toxic finance. Money itself is not the problem, as it is at its base simply a symbolic demand system, a ticket system with open-ended claims created by mankind for his convenience. Bus tickets and theatre tickets have specific rights of demand, but money may be exchanged for anything at all offered by a willing seller. The real issue is in how money is issued into society, upon what terms and conditions, and in the activity this compels. However, before we come to this, some well-established basics have to be understood. With the exception of about 2% of money, which is produced by the mint in the form of notes and coins, all money is now created by our banking system. It is literally created. How? The key to understanding it is in observing that when a bank makes a loan, no deposit is reduced. When the loan is spent, the account receiving it is increased by that amount. No deposit is reduced, though one is increased. Money has been created. There are hundreds of authorities that have attested to the fact that this is how it works. I give just a few. The following quote is from Robert H. Hemphill. If all bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of currency or coin in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent monetary system. When one gets a complete grasp upon this picture, the tragic absurdity of our helpless position is almost incredible, but there it is. Graham F. Towers, Governor of the Bank of Canada, gave these responses to questioning before the Canadian House of Commons Standing Committee on Banking and Finance on May 3, 1939, from existent parliamentary records. Question: but there is no question about it that the banks do create that medium of exchange? Answer: that is right. That is what they are there for. Question: so that we are clear on this point, that our merchant banks do create and issue 88% of the money medium of exchange in common use in Canada today? Answer: roughly. Mr. R. G. Hawtrey, one-time Assistant Undersecretary to the British Treasury, in his work Trade Depression and the Way Out, published by Longmans, Green & Co. of London in 1933, says, when a bank lends, it creates money out of nothing. Encyclopaedia Britannica, 14th edition, 1929, under the heading Banking and Credit, Volume 3, page 48, says, banks create credit. It is a mistake to suppose that bank credit is created to any important extent by the payment of money into the banks. It is a clear addition to the amount of the means of payment in the community. And here I present a final quote from Governor Eccles, a former chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank Board, who said, in giving evidence before the House Banking and Currency Committee hearing in 1941, the banks can create and destroy money. It's the money we do most of our business with, not with that currency we think of as money. Of course, somebody has to create our money, for a complex society cannot operate efficiently without it. This money is created without cost, and it has in itself no value either, until we, the community, confer value upon it. Because others will accept it in exchange for their disposable goods and services, it is given value to us. It is real credit which gives financial credit its value. Real credit resides in the ability of the community to deliver desired goods and services when, where, and as required. Financial credit draws its value from the community, not from the banks. Yet, in our archaic system, the banks that create our money count it as their asset and demand its later return with interest. It is from this complication that a gross distortion of the human economy grows. The need for an increase in the money supply is a reflection of the community's profitability. Only when our products outstrip the purchasing power available to buy them is increased credit needed. This national profit, an increase of real credit over our financial credit available, thus becomes, through the bank's use of their privileges, our national debt. An excess of real credit, that is goods and services, over financial credit, money, and our national profitability in this way becomes our cumulative and ever-burgeoning national debt. This is clearly an incorrect approach that does not reflect the true, real, or just situation. If the above is accepted as so, then the need for a money supply increase would be paid as a national dividend, and as such it would not be recoverable, as is debt. The importance of this resides in the fact that the distribution of a national dividend equally to all will to this extent displace wages and salaries as a source of purchasing power. At the moment, when the only source of purchasing power is wages and salaries, if we cannot buy what we've already produced, we must produce even more so that the incomes paid out in doing so will allow us to consume what we've already produced. There's no end to this scramble. When production exceeds needs in one cycle, it must do so again in the next, otherwise recession appears. With production methods now such that scarcity has been pretty much completely removed from the developed economies, the most outrageous devices are resorted to by way of cures. Built-in obsolescence, the creation of artificial needs with intense advertising daily battering the population to consume more, the piling up of regulations upon regulations in order to increase the labour needed for everything, and the urging of governments and all others to borrow and spend more and more are among the results. In order to earn more, because we can't afford to buy what is now produced, we must produce yet more again and consume more still. Without a national dividend to distribute purchasing power commensurate with consumption of our production, we really have only two ways to keep the economy going. These two ways are employment and the creating of additional money as debt. Both are dependent upon the obsessive fixation of all governments everywhere with growth. Growth at any price. Growth, growth, and more growth. To even have reservations here is to be politically incorrect. Douglas's first published written article on the matter was called The Delusion of Superproduction, and said, in part, "There is no more dangerous delusion abroad in the world at this time than that production per se is wealth. It is about as sensible as a statement that because food is necessary to man, he should eat continually and eat everything." Social security does not increase purchasing power, it simply redistributes it. In total aggregate, it remains at best the same. In a world in which automated and semi-automated processes are daily displacing labour in industry and commerce, and the cry is for greater efficiency, there is, alongside it, the ever-present demand for full employment and innovative ways of creating it. As our ability to produce is advanced and more people worldwide attain modern production methods, the earth will have to be torn apart to obtain the resources to keep us all fully employed. No, we won't need all this production. We already have surpluses of almost everything. But we will need payment, and the only idea we have for doing this is employment. Whenever green activists call for the stopping of some activity, whether it be clear felling forests, mining in sensitive areas, chemical pollution by industry, or something else, the one clear and unceasing cry in response is, "But that will cause unemployment." Full employment has become almost an object of worship, and not for what it can produce, as this is largely unneeded, but for what it can distribute, namely purchasing power, for which no alternate method of distribution may be contemplated. A national dividend to distribute that new and additional money that has to be created both can and must displace wages to the extent that extra money is necessary. Its impact, though, will go much further than supplementing wages. Being issued under government authority, not as a debt, and requiring neither interest nor repayment, it simply being a bookkeeping entry on a national balance sheet and coming to the public as a credit, it can and will liquidate the same amount of debt. All modern developed countries increase their money supplies by an average of over 10% per annum on pain of falling into the deepest of recessions otherwise. Half of many local governments' charges go in servicing yesterday's debts. All debt flows into higher prices and taxes as the means of repaying it are sought. As debt-free credit is progressively used to monetize the ever-recurring profitability of modern economies, these credits will cancel debts in like amount. Only credits, of course, can cancel debts. As debt atrophies, so too will much of the need for repayment. Resources to keep everyone fully employed all the time will no longer be required. The above ideas are not new, and they are much more developed than the simple sketch drawn above. What is generally referred to as social credit began marshalling its ideas almost 100 years ago, and it has websites, www.socialcredit.com.au being one of them. Both the philosophical and technical aspects of these ideas are explored in depth. Of course, there is opposition. Capitalism wants all people to be under its direction through full employment, and trade union leadership wants all to be workers, as that is their power base. This is a third way, and its beneficiaries are the ordinary people fitting neither above category. Employment, to be sure, is a natural state of man. It was once mostly organized through the institution of slavery. Currently, it takes the form of paid employment. In the coming world, where computer-controlled machines and processes do the work, and most will receive their right to participate and consume as a national dividend, work will continue, but it will continue largely on the basis of freely given service to others, which will be solely chosen by the worker himself in consideration of his interests, talents and abilities, and upon the needs of the community he loves and serves. The alternative is a frantic hysteria of activity predicated upon maximum employment, maximum mechanization and automation, maximum production, maximum consumption, and maximum burning up of the Earth's resources. In this world, environmentalism will only win small battles at the margins in the midst of an unstoppable conflagration. It's time for environmentalists to think outside the square and to attend to the creation of a human, financial and economic environment which alone can enable them to win the war.